last week, I sat across from a man who had everything. At least that's what society would tell you. He had the corner office, the luxury car, the prestigious title. But as I looked into his eyes, I saw something that broke my heart. You see, this man wasn't living, he was existing. He wasn't thriving, he was surviving. And the most tragic part, he leaned forward and whispered something I'll never forget. He said, you know what keeps me up at night? It's not the deadlines, not the meetings, not even the pressure. It's the deafening sound of the music I never played, the books I never wrote, the life I never dared to live. This man has spent 40 years climbing a ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. 40 years chasing someone else's definition of success. 40 years living someone else's life. And here's what terrifies me. He's not alone. Look to your left. Look to your right. According to research, 97 people will go to their graves without ever living their true purpose. 97%. That's not just a statistic. That's a tragedy. That's millions of symphonies never composed. Millions of businesses never started. Millions of lives never fully lived. But you know what's even more heartbreaking? A study from the Harvard Business School revealed that 70% of people on their deathbed listed their biggest regret as not having the courage to live a life true to themselves, but rather the life others expected of them. So I have a question for you today. It's a question that might make you uncomfortable. It's a question that might keep you up tonight. But it's a question that could change everything. Who are you not becoming? What trying to become everyone else? Let that sink in. Who are you not becoming? What trying to become everyone else? You see, right now in this room, there's enough potential to transform our world. There are dreams big enough to revolutionize industries. There are ideas powerful enough to change lives. But here's the problem. Buried under layers of other people's expectations, buried under the weight of society's definitions of success, buried under the fear of standing out, of being different, of being. And that's why I'm here today. Not to give you another formula for success. Not to tell you what you should become, but to wake up the giant within you that already knows who you were meant to be. Because the world doesn't need another copy. The world is desperate for the original that is you. But first, you must focus on you. We're living in what I call the age of validation. Never before in human history have we been so connected, yet so disconnected from ourselves. Never before have we had so much information about how to live, yet been so confused about how we should live. Let me paint you a picture of a typical day in our modern world. You wake up and what's the first thing you do? You reach for your phone. Before you've even said good morning to yourself, you're checking how many likes your last post got. Before you've taken your first breath of gratitude, you're scrolling through carefully curated highlights of other people's lives. And that's just the beginning. You go to wearing clothes that some influencer told you were trendy. You order a lunch that's Instagram worthy. You pursue a career path because it looks good on LinkedIn. You spend 2 hours at the gym, not because your body needs it, but because society demands it. And at the end of the day, you're exhausted. Not from living, but from performing. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah was a brilliant artist. Her paintings could move people to tears, but Sarah never became the artist she was meant to be. Why? Because her parents told her that real success meant becoming a lawyer. Today, Sarah sits in a corner office, making 7 figures a year, dying inside with every contract she reviews. She's successful by everyone else's standards, but she's failing at being Sarah. The cost of living someone else's dream isn't just the dream you lose. It's the person you never be. And then there's Marcus. Marcus saw his friend start a tech company and make millions. So Marcus quit his teaching job. A job he loved, a job where he was changing lives, to start his own tech company. 3 years and his life savings later, Marcus was bankrupt. Not because he wasn't smart enough, but because he was chasing someone else's destiny. You see, Borrowed ambitions are like borrowed clothes. They might look good on the surface, but they never quite fit right. They chafe. They restrict. They make you uncomfortable in your own skin. Let me share something shocking with you. Studies show that the average person spends 2 hours and 24 minutes every day on social media. That's 36 days a year. 36 days of watching other people's highlight reels. 36 days of comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's perfectly edited production. But here's what social media doesn't show up in their posting about their success, isn't showing you the 6 businesses that failed before this one. The fitness model with the perfect body isn't showing you their battles with anxiety and self-doubt. In fact, the couple posting their romantic vacation isn't showing you their marriage counseling sessions. We're suffering from what I call digital malnutrition. We're overfed on information, but starving for wisdom. We're drowning in opinions, but thirsting for truth. We're rich in connections, but poor in relationships with ourselves. And the real tragedy is that while you're busy trying to become someone else is busy wishing they had your gifts. While you're trying to live someone else's life, your life is waiting to be lived. Let me tell you about the most dangerous word in the English language. It's not failure. It's not rejection. It's not even impossible. The most dangerous word is shouldn't. I should be more like her. I want what they want. I should be further along by now. Every time you say should, you're betraying your authentic self. If the crisis we face today isn't a crisis of opportunity, it's not a crisis of information, it's not even a crisis of competition, it's a crisis of self-neglect. We become so busy trying to be everything to everyone that we've forgotten how to be ourselves to ourselves. While we're busy looking left and right, checking what everyone else is doing, comparing ourselves to every stranger on the internet, life is passing us by. Our dreams are gathering dust. Our potential is going untapped. Our true selves are screaming for attention, but we're too busy taking selfies to hear the cry. Have you ever stopped to think about something remarkable? Out of the nearly 8 billion people on this planet, not a single person has the same fingerprint as you. Not one. Scientists tell us that the odds of 2 people having the same fingerprints are 1 in 64 trillion. 64 trillion. But let me take it even further. Your DNA is so uniquely yours that if we were to write out your genetic code, it would fill 1 million pages. 1 million pages of what makes you uniquely you. Now, let me ask you something. Do you really believe that the same creator who went through the trouble of making sure no 2 fingerprints are alike, who crafted DNA sequences so complex and unique, would do all that just for you to be a copy of someone else? The evidence of your uniqueness isn't just in your biology. It's in your biography. Your experiences, your struggles, your victories, your failures, they've all come together to create something that has never existed before and will never exist again. But here's where we often get it wrong. We take this masterpiece of unique design and try to force it into someone else's mold. It's like taking an eagle and trying to teach it to swim like a fish. Could an eagle survive in water? Maybe. Would it survive? Possibly, but would it thrive? Absolutely not. Because an eagle was designed to soar in the skies. Now, let me tell you about Michael. Michael was born with natural ability in mathematics. Numbers danced in his head like poetry. But his family had a tradition of producing doctors. So what did Michael do? He spent 10 years forcing himself through medical school, fighting against his nature, trying to memorize terms that felt like a foreign language to his number-loving mind. You see, when you force an ability that isn't natural to you, 3 things happen. First, you exhaust yourself. It's like trying to write with your non-dominant hand. You can do it, but it drains you. Second, you block your true talents from emerging. You're so busy trying to be good at what you're not. You never become great at what you are. Third, you rob the world of your authentic contribution. Someone out there needs exactly what you were naturally designed to give. Now let's talk about authenticity. Real authenticity isn't just about being yourself. It's about being your best self. Think about a violin. A violin is authentically a violin. It doesn't try to be a drum. It doesn't apologize for not being a guitar. It simply becomes the best violin it can be. And when it does that, it creates music that no other instrument can create. Your authenticity is your competitive advantage. In the world of copies, authenticity isn't just refreshing. It's revolutionary. When you show up as yourself, you're not competing with anyone. Why? But finding your core strengths isn't about making a list of what you're good at. It's about understanding what energizes you. What makes you lose track of time? What problems do you solve naturally? What do people constantly come to you for help? Let me give you a practical way to identify your core strengths. I call it the 3 energy. Activities energize you rather than drain you. Excellence. What do you do better than most people without much effort? Enjoyment. What would you do even if you weren't paid for it? Where these 3's intersect. That's your sweet spot. That's where your unique design shines brightest. Your natural talents are like water. They will always find their level. You can try to force water uphill, but the moment you stop pushing, it flows back to its natural course. The same is true of your authentic self. You can suppress it, ignore it, try to be someone else, but your true nature will always find a way to express itself. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more you focus on being authentically yourself, the more you give others permission to be authentically themselves. Your courage to be different inspires others to embrace their own unique. Remember this, you are not a mistake trying to be corrected. You are not a problem trying to be solved. You are a purpose trying to be fulfilled. Every quirk, every peculiarity, every supposed flaw, they're not bugs in the system. They're features of your authenticity. The question isn't whether you're unique. That's already established in your DNA, your fingerprints, your experiences. The question is, when will you stop apologizing for your uniqueness and start amplifying it? When will you stop trying to fit in and start standing out? When will you stop dimming your light just because it makes others uncomfortable? Here's the truth. The world doesn't need another carbon copy. The world doesn't need another impersonator. The world needs your voice, your ideas, your perspective, your gifts, exactly as they were designed to be. Your unique design isn't a coincidence. It's a calling. If you had a machine that printed $1,000 every single day, what would you do with that machine? Would you neglect it? Would you forget to oil it? Would you let it rust? Of course not. You would protect it, maintain it, and invest in its upkeep. You'd guard it with your life. Well, I have that news for you. You are that machine, but you're not printing $1,000. You're printing your future, your legacy, your life. And yet, how many of us invest more time in our cars than our careers? A little more money in our clothes than our minds. More energy in our social media profiles than our personal growth. Let me share something that changed my life. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest men in the world, was once asked about his secret to success. You know what he said? He held up his calendar and said, I can buy anything I want, but I can't buy more time. Think about that. The man worth billions acknowledges that his most precious asset isn't his money. It's his time. But here's where it gets interesting. Personal growth follows the same principle as compound interest. In finance, compound interest is interest on interest. Money growing on top of money. But in personal development, it's knowledge building on skills building on skills. Growth building on growth. Let me show you how this works. If you improve yourself just one every day, at the end of 1 year, you're not 365 better. You're 37.8 times better. That's the power of compound growth. Small, consistent investments in yourself create exponential returns. But here's the catch, and this is crucial. Time is a non-renewable resource. You can lose money and make it back. You can lose friends and make new ones. You can lose opportunities and create new ones. But time, once it's gone, It's gone forever. Every minute you spend not investing in yourself is a minute you'll never get back. Every day you postpone your personal growth is a day of compound interest you've lost forever. Now, let me introduce you to what I call the oxygen mask principle. You know how on airplanes they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first before helping others? Ever wondered why? Because if you run out of oxygen while trying to help someone else, you both lose. The same principle applies to your life. You cannot give what you don't have. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. You cannot lead others where you haven't gone yourself. Let me tell you about James. James was a dedicated father, husband, and employee. He worked 60 hours a week, attended every school event, and was always there when his friends needed him. Sounds admirable, right? But James never invested in himself. He never read books, never attended seminars, never took care of his health. He was so busy being everything to everyone that he forgot to be something to himself. Then one day, James collapsed. Finding out depression. His body and mind finally said, enough. And you know what happened? The very people he was trying to help now had to help him. His sacrifice had become someone else's burden. The voice becomes more analytical. This brings us to one of the most critical aspects of self-investment, breaking down self-sabotage patterns. Let me share the 4 most common patterns I've observed. Here's the I'll start tomorrow syndrome. This is the deadliest form of self-sabotage because it feels so reasonable. But remember, tomorrow's a concept that never arrives. It's always today. Second, the I don't deserve it pattern. This comes from past conditioning, from voices that told you you're not worth the investment. But let me tell you something, worthiness isn't earned, it's inherited. You were born worthy of investment. Third, the I don't have time excuse. But here's the truth. You don't find time, you make time. Nobody has time. Everybody has turf, but I can't afford it mindset. But the real question isn't, can I afford to invest in myself? The real question is, can I afford not to? Let me give you a practical framework for self-investment. I call it the 5 accounts of personal banking. Audit, your health, energy, and vitality, mental account. Your knowledge, skills, and create 3 emotional accounts. Your self-awareness, relationships, and virtual account. Your purpose, values, and inner peace, 5 financial accounts. Your resources, assets, and wealth. That's like a bank account. Each of these needs regular deposits. And just like a bank account, if you make more withdrawals than deposits, you'll end up bankrupt. But here's the beautiful thing about investing in yourself. It's the only investment where you are both the investor and the asset. You're both the sculptor and the marble. You're both the farmer and the field. And unlike the stock market, the return on investment in yourself is guaranteed. Why? Because even if you fail at reaching your goal, you've grown in the process. Even if the business fails, the wisdom remains. Even if the relationship ends, the lessons stay with you. Let me tell you something that might shock you. Is self-investment isn't selfish. It's your responsibility. Because if you don't invest in yourself, you're forcing everyone who depends on you to bank on a depreciated asset. Think about it. If children don't need a parent who's burned out, they need one who's growing. Your team doesn't need a leader who's stagnant. They need one who's evolving. Your community doesn't need another depleted servant. They need someone who serves from their overflow. The principle of self-investment isn't just about becoming better. It's about becoming more of who you were designed to be. Every book you read, every skill you master, every limiting belief you overcome. They're all different. And here's the ultimate truth. The world needs your investment in yourself. Because when you grow, everyone in your world benefits. When you become better, you can serve better. When you invest in yourself, you gain dividends that bless generations to come. So I ask you, if not now, when? If not you, Your greatest asset is waiting for its greatest investor. Now, I'm going to share something powerful with you. These aren't just theories or nice ideas. These are battle-tested strategies that have transformed lives. Are you ready to get practical? Are you ready to move from knowing to doing? Let's start with what I call the morning self-alignment ritual. You see, most people start their day in reaction mode. Their phone is their alarm clock, social media is their morning newspaper, and their email is their to-do list. They're playing defense before they even get out of bed. Here's your new morning ritual. I call it the power hour. Silence and meditation. Get still. Listen to your inner voice before the world starts shouting. Set your minutes. A scripture or inspirational reading. Feed your spirit before you feed your body. Final 20 minutes. Scripting your day. Not just planning a scripting. Write your day as if it's already happened perfectly. But here's the key. This isn't about perfection, it's about direction. Miss a day? Start again. Wake up late. Do 30 minutes instead of 60. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. Now, let's talk about something that changes everything. Boundaries setting protocol. Listen carefully, because this is where most people lose themselves. Your boundaries are your personal constitution. They're not me. They're not selfish. They're necessary. Here's your boundaries, blueprint. 5 boundaries. What hours are non-negotiable for your self-development? Energy boundaries. What activities and people drain you? Priority boundaries. What are your non-negotiable values? 4. Communication boundaries. How and when will you be available? Let me tell you about Lisa. Lisa was a people pleaser who couldn't say no. She was everybody's emergency contact, but had no time for her own emergencies. Then she implemented the boundaries blueprint. First week were chaos. People were upset. Second week, still difficult. Third week, something magical happened. People started respecting her time. Why? Now let's dive into something revolutionary. The energy audit technique. Pull out your phones right now. For the next 7 days, I want you to rate every activity and interaction on a scale of 1 to 10. Yeah? Completely energized, neutral, completely drained, log everything. Meetings, conversations, tasks, hobbies. At the end of the week, you'll have a personal energy map. This isn't about good or bad. It's about understanding your energy equation. Understanding isn't enough. You need direction. This is where personal vision mapping comes in. Most people have goals. Winners have visions. Here's the difference. A goal is something you pursue. A vision is something that pulls you. Your personal vision map needs 4 quadrants. What do you need to become? 2. What actions align with that person? 3. Have resources will you need? 4. How will they serve others? Now here's where most people fail. They don't track their progress. Remember, what gets measured gets managed. What gets managed gets improved. What gets improved gets transformed. I'm going to give you the progress tracking system I use. It's called the Daily 3. What did I learn today? 2. What did I improve today? 3. What did I contribute today? But your progress doesn't happen in a vacuum. This brings us to environment optimization. Your environment isn't neutral. It's either lifting you up or pulling you down. There are 4 environments you must optimize. Physical environment. No. Clear your space, clear your mind. Remove visual noise. Create success triggers. Design your workspace for focus. Audit your notifications. Most social media feeds. Nope. Organize your digital workspace. No. Create tech-free zones. Elegant miss not. E. Evaluate your 5 closest friends. Die. Join growth-oriented communities. Find accountability partners. Me. Read masterminds. Mental environments. Me. Monitor your self-talk. Your information intake. There. Practice mindfulness. Develop mental boundaries. Finally, let's talk about something that might make you uncomfortable. With the relationship evaluation matrix, every relationship in your life falls into one of 4 categories. Energize. They lift you higher. They keep you steady. They deplete your energy. They poison your progress. Now, I'm not saying cut people off. I'm saying categorize to strategize for each relationship. Does this relationship support my growth? Do I feel energized or drained after interactions? Is this relationship reciprocal? Does this person respect my boundaries? Let me be clear. This isn't about being selfish. It's about being strategic. It's about being intentional. Because here's the truth. You can't help others reach their potential if you're not reaching yours. These 7 steps. Morning ritual, boundaries, energy audit, vision mapping, progress tracking, environment optimization, and relationship evaluation. They form what I call your personal focus framework. But here's what makes this framework powerful. It's not rigid, it's fluid. It's not about perfection, it's about progression. It's not about isolation, it's about intention. Start with 1. Master it. Move to the next, but start today. Because while you're waiting for the perfect time to focus on yourself, life is happening. While you're waiting for permission to prioritize your growth, opportunities are passing. The world needs your focus. Your family needs your growth. Your future is waiting for your attention. These aren't just steps. They're your pathway to becoming who you were designed to be. Yet the question isn't, can you do this? The question is, can you afford not to? Your focus determines your future. And your future begins with the next decision you make. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The resistance you'll face when you finally decide to focus on yourself. And let me tell you something right now. The obstacles aren't just external. Often, the biggest battle is between you. Let's start with guilt. Guilt. That faithful companion of self-improvement. You don't know that voice, don't you? Who do you think you are? Isn't this selfish? Shouldn't you be doing something for others instead? Guilt is not your conscience speaking. Guilt is your conditioning talking. When you feel guilty for focusing on yourself, remember, a candle doesn't feel guilty for burning bright. A tree doesn't apologize for growing tall. And you shouldn't feel guilty for becoming who you were meant to be. Remember Maria, a mother of 3 who wanted to go back to school. Every time she opened her textbook, guilt would wash over her. What kind of mother studies while her children are awake? But here's what Maria discovered. Her children didn't need her time as much as they needed her example. Today, those same children brag about their mom who got her degree while raising them. She didn't just raise children. She raised aspirations. Now let's talk about family expectations. But that's not how we do things in our family. No one in our family has ever done that before. What will the relatives think? They're often based on your family's limitations, not your potential. Your family's ceiling doesn't have to be your ceiling. Love them, respect them. But don't let their fears become your boundaries. And then there's the workplace demands. I'm too busy. My job takes everything. I can't risk my position right now. It is something revolutionary. Your job is not your life. It's just funding your life. Your career is not your purpose. It's just a platform for your purpose. Dear, what I want you to do, start treating your personal growth like a second job. Because it is. Schedule it. Protect it. Invest in it. Your workplace will take everything you give it unless you decide what's not available to give. And then there's social pressure. The raised eyebrows when you skip the party to work on your goals, the comments about how you've changed, the friends who say you're too serious now. Crabs in a bucket will always try to pull down the one trying to climb out. Not because they're evil, but because they don't understand the climb. Your growth will trigger others' insecurities. That's not your burden to carry. Now, let's address something real. Financial constraints. I can't afford personal development. Growth is expensive. I don't have the resources. Let me break this down for you. Libraries are free. YouTube has unlimited knowledge. What can costs? Meditation is free. Journaling costs the price of a notebook. Prayer has no price tag. The truth is, lack of money is rarely the real obstacle. It's lack of creativity. It's lack of commitment. When you're truly committed, you don't find resources, you create them. Here's your obstacle override protocol. When guilt strikes, ask yourself, will becoming better really make me a worse person? Right? Replace guilt with gratitude for the opportunity to grow again. Your growth inspires others' growth. When family pushes, love them enough to disappoint them. Show results instead of arguing. Create a new family legacy. When work demands everything. Set digital boundaries. Master the art of strategic saying no. Turn your commute into a university on when social pressure mounts. Upgrade your social circle. Remember your why? Let results silence the critics. When finances are tight, start with free resources. Invest time when you can't invest money. Turn limitations into innovations. Here's what you need to understand. Obstacles aren't stopping signs. They're navigation instructions. Every obstacle is teaching you something you need to know for where you're going. And remember this, the size of your obstacles reveals the size of your future. Small dreams attract small problems. Big vision attracts big challenges. Those obstacles you're facing, they're not in your way. The question isn't whether you'll face obstacles. The question is, will you let them define you or refine? But here's the truth. On the other side of every obstacle is the person you're meant to become. Have you ever watched a butterfly emerge from its cocoon? It's a fascinating process. But here's what most people don't know. If you try to help the butterfly by cutting open the cocoon, you'll kill it. The struggle to emerge is what forces fluid into its wings, making them strong enough to fly. Your transformation process is no different. The struggle isn't opposing you. Let me tell you something about transformation that nobody talks about. It's uncomfortable. When a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, do you know what happens inside that cocoon? It literally dissolves. Everything it was must die for what it could be to emerge. That's the price of transformation. You must be willing to let go of who you are to become who you were meant to be. Your old habits, your old thinking, your old comfort zones, they must dissolve. But here's where most people get it wrong. They want microwave success and a crock process. They want overnight transformation from years of stagnation. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly in a day. It doesn't even become a butterfly in a week. It takes exactly as long as it takes. No more, no less. You can't rush the process. This is where patience becomes power. Not passive patience, active patience. The kind of patience that keeps working when you can't see results. The kind of patience that keeps believing when others have stopped believing. The kind of patience that keeps pushing when everything within you wants to quit. But here's the secret weapon of transformation: consistency. Small actions repeated consistently create massive transformation. The butterfly doesn't have to figure out how to become a butterfly. It just has to stay in the process. The DNA does the rest. Your purpose is already encoded within you. Your job isn't to force the transformation, it's to stay in the process. And remember, Everyone's once a disaster. Every expert was once a beginner. Every butterfly was once a caterpillar. The only difference, they stay. The question isn't whether you can transform. The question is, will you trust the process long enough to let the transformation happen? Because in the end, the butterfly doesn't tell the caterpillar story.